Hello crafty friends, today I'm going to share with you some cards that I made using this Creative Expressions Woodware mini baubles stamp set. I had so much fun stamping and then filling in all the little circles on the stamped images. I had so much fun choosing what I would stamp and how to emboss it, and then working out how I would fill in all the different circles on these baubles. And there are so many different options that you can use, and I've only used just a couple in this video. So I was just showing you a die that I had in my stash, and I've used it to cut out circles of different shapes. And then I also went through my die collection and found small circles that I could use to also make some die cuts that would fit nicely into the circles on the bauble. Now I'm only going to show you the actual process of filling in and gluing on the cardboard cutouts that I've made. I should say cardstock cutouts for one of the baubles, and then I'll show you a collection of all the baubles I made. And then I'm going to show you the cards I've made so far using all these pretty mini baubles. Now there are a range of different stamps in this line from Creative Expressions, and I'm just using one set today. So as well as using the die cut cardstock, I am going in with a range of either enamel dots, drops, Nouveau drops, and liquid pearls to just go in and fill in the rest of the circles that are left that the die cut shapes didn't actually fill in. And I've chosen to use a range of colours that will go or match back to a pattern pack I'm using from Pink and Main, and I will show you that shortly. So just going in, adding in my different colours of drops, and just trying to make sure I have a nice even spread of colour around my little bauble. And I did just give it a tap there to make sure all my dots settle into nice dome shapes. So here's the paper pad. I'm just flicking through, giving you a quick look of some of the papers in this kit, in this paper pad. This actually came as a free gift with a purchase I made not long ago. Now, here's a look at some of the baubles I've made. So these ones, you'll see that I've used mainly cardstock on those. This one here, I've used a range of different Nouveau drops or perfect pearls or enamel drops. And I've done all different combinations of colours, and some I've gone ahead and made into like a monochromatic colour scheme. Then I decided I'd go through my collection of sequins, and I added those in with the different drops that I was using as well. And you can see some of my decorations I've embossed the bow onto the top, others I haven't. Now I'm just showing you there, I've gone ahead and used some flat back pearls as well as gemstones, faceted gemstones with the sequins, and added those onto the cards. So these are just a few of the ways that you can use these stamps and fill in all the circles and make some really pretty baubles. And last few there, I've got the cardstock cutouts, as well as some of the little sequins or star shapes that I've added in. I then found a Buttons Galore button mix, which is full of different types of buttons and little beads and sequins, and I've gone and used those to decorate 3 separate baubles, and they don't match back to the paper pack, but I was really excited to see what they would look like on the actual baubles. In total, I have 23 decorated baubles. Card number 1 is going to be in a landscape orientation, and I've cut myself a nice frame that has a scalloped inside detail, and I use this die set quite often. It's one of my favourites. And then into the middle there, I'm going to flip over the spotted pattern and use the blue, less busy side of the pattern paper for the inside of my frame. And it is quite easy to line this frame up to put its insert back in. So then I'm taking 3 of the baubles that have mostly got the die cut circles or stars, or even the little sequin pieces layered up on top, and I'm adhering them to my card front. Now the first one is glued down nice and flat. I've then made myself a little green ribbon bow, which I've made a little bit longer and a little bit larger than I actually needed until I get it on top of my die cut, and then I can adjust it to the length I want when I'm ready. For the second bauble, it's going to be popped up on some foam squares, and then I add a little bit of glue because I just like to know that it's going to be extra secure there, particularly when it's going to overlap onto the bauble on the background. So that's attached. Now I'm just going to go ahead and attach my third bauble on foam tape and then with glue again, and that's going to be on a slightly different level to the other two. I just want it a little bit higher so there's different angles going across the card. I've also cut myself out a Merry Christmas sentiment with a scrapbook.com die, and this was a free gift with purchase last month I think it was, and it's a lovely scripty font. I'm just putting spots of glue there onto it. I don't want too much because I don't want the glue to seep out from underneath when I press it down and then cloud up my foiling on the front of the paper there. And those tweezers are really handy to push your sentiment down. They've got a nice flat edge on them. Now I'm adding to my other 2 baubles their little green ribbon bows, and then let those dry on there before I then came back in and trimmed the tails down on them. I'm using some gold peel-offs from Love from Lizzie, and they're going to be the strings for my ornaments, and just popping that one on, and then I'll make sure they're nice and firmly attached and straight and snip those off. Now that middle bauble has quite a bit of white showing at the top of it, and I didn't like that, so I'm going to bring in a Posca gold metallic pen, and I'm just going to colour in the top there as an ornament would be. Card number 2, I've made myself a slimline card base, and then I've used my paper trimmer to cut myself a piece of paper that I can then die cut using a LDRS slimline die. I've cut myself a nice matting piece out of an aqua colour, and then I've used another part of that LDRS die, and it's going to cut out the scalloped frame for me. Just making sure I've got plenty of glue on there, and then I'll place it on the front of my card. Now these colours are different to the colours in the card pack because I'm going to use those 3 baubles that I've used the button mix from Button Galore's on. Just setting out where I think I want my baubles to go. I'm bringing in this pale pink and coppery coloured twine, and I'm going to use that as the strings or ties on my different baubles there. For this first one, I've wrapped the twine around the top, and then I'm going to let that set. Now while that glue's drying, I've grabbed 3 little snowflake stamps and I'm using my watermark or embossing ink, and I'm just going to create a pretty little tone on tone background pattern paper there for my baubles to sit on. So I go ahead and I'll stamp that all over. Then to fill in the gaps, I've taken each of the individual stamps separately and place those accordingly where the little gaps are. And it gives you that lovely tone on tone. Now I'm using the Merry Christmas sentiment again from scrapbook.com, and I'm just going to adhere that down to the bottom edge of my card, and that then will allow me to work out the exact positioning of where I want my baubles to go. So I've used a red pearl cardstock here for my sentiment. It doesn't show up here in the video, but you can definitely see that it has got a pearl finish on the cardstock. I'll place that on, and I just want to line up where the beginning of the M is with the beginning of the swirl on the C. I just like how that looks. Now I'm adding on that very fiddly little red dot for the eye in Christmas. Now I have all my strings there ready to be attached to my card base. So I've added glue and I've added some foam tape to the back of them as well. Now the string for that longest one has to go underneath the top bauble. So that's been adhered first, and then I'm attaching that first bauble. The third bauble, sorry, that was the second one. The third bauble is a little round one, and that's getting popped up on foam tape. Now I needed to just lift up that top bauble very carefully so I could place the string for it underneath. Now to adhere the twine to the card, I'm just laying down a bead of glue as straight as I can, and then I'm going to push my twine into the glue. I don't have to push very hard, and the Bauble art glue does adhere very quickly, so you don't have to wait too long for it actually to start setting onto your card and the twine. Now to finish off my card, I've grabbed these teeny tiny little clear gemstones, and I'm just going to go ahead and place each one into the middle of the snowflakes that you can see that aren't tucked too far behind the baubles or the sentiments. And once I've done that, my card will be finished. I think this card's really pretty, and it's a nice way to use your buttons that you have sitting around in your stash as well. My third card is going to be landscape as well, and I've chosen the striped colourful paper for my background. I've just found that when you want to add 3 of the baubles to your card, having it on the landscape position just gives you that little bit extra room to lay them out. So I've got my 3 baubles here, and I've tried to make sure they are in the colours on the paper, and that the way I've decorated them is similar to each other. So I'm taking 2 of the round baubles and I'm gluing those down flat to the card, and then I'm going to take my third long bauble, which has the sequins on it as an additional decoration, and I'm popping that one up on foam tape. I'll then angle that onto my card so that it doesn't cover up too much of my other baubles, and it gives a nice pleasing look to the eye. Using that scrapbook.com Merry Christmas, this time I've cut it in white cardstock, and I've adhered that, and I'm going to have it running across the top of my card. I'm going to make sure that the end of my Y is nice and close to the swirl of the beginning of the C for Christmas. And to finish off, I'm adding lots of pretty sequins as though they're confetti in the air, celebrating Christmas. And I've got there the sequin mix that I'm using, which is a Catherine Pooler set called Scranton. Card number 4 is going to be landscape as well, but this time I'm going to be using just one bauble and some other die cut elements to decorate. I've cut a striped pattern a little smaller than my card base. I've then taken a piece of cardstock and I've covered it in red glitter tape from a Pink and Main card kit. Then I'm using these really pretty holly leaves that have a little bit of a steampunk look to them, and I'm adding that to the bottom of my card, and they're going to be the landing place for my pretty bauble, which is mostly greens and reds on its decoration. And I'm popping that up on some foam tape there. And it has a very traditional looking green and red colour scheme for the bauble, but then that's put against that more modern looking holly branches and berries. At the top then I've popped on my glitter tape strip of cardstock, and I'm adding the blue pearlized cardstock sentiment this time because there is blue in the background of that striped paper, and I just wanted to add a little bit more of the blue to highlight that colour's in there as well. Now to finish off, I'm bringing in my Nuvo glitter drops, and I'm going to go around into each of the centres of the little flowers or berries and pop just a small dot on each of those. Now I do put a dot on here in a moment, and I didn't like how it looked, so I'm going to come back and use my tweezers to carefully wipe off the Nuvo drops before it sets in place, and comes off cleanly and neatly that way. And then I've realised there's a couple little holly berries that I've missed over there in the corner. And that's my card finished. Card number 5 is going to be in the portrait position, and I'm just going to glue on a bottom layer to my card base, and that's going to be just about 1/8 of an inch smaller than the card base itself. Then I've cut myself a pretty piece of holly berry paper from the Pink and Main paper pack, and I'm going to attach that onto the red layer. That red layer is my matting layer. Then I've taken a smaller rectangle of paper and I've run it through the Pink and Main embossing folder that looks like confetti, and that's going to be also matted onto the same red cardstock. I'm going to place that onto my card front slightly off center, more to the left of my card. Glue that on, getting it nice and straight, and just giving it a good rub to make sure that the paper is adhered to itself as well as the card base. I've then stamped the Christmas wishes sentiment from the stamp set with the baubles, and then backed that onto some red cardstock as well. Just attaching that there to the bottom right corner, and then I'm going to take my bauble, which I've popped up on foam tape, and then I'm going to place that in the center, slightly overlapping the sentiment there. And to finish off, I've taken some more Catherine Pooler sequins with greens and reds to match the backing paper, and just putting those around my sentiment to draw your eye more towards there. And that one is finished. Card number 6 is also going to be portrait positioned, and I'm using green cardstock from my stash, and I'm going to cover the entire front of my card. On top of that, I'm going to add this pretty paper that's got very bright grid pattern on it, and that's going to be the base for all my other layers that are going on top. So here I've got a rectangled piece of pearlized cardstock, and I've then run down the edges or sides of the cardstock with some very thin Love from Lizzie pink peel-offs. I've cut myself a little tag using a Sizzix die set and added a green ribbon to the top there. Now I did cut myself a little scallop strip and then stamped the sentiment on there, and I did not like how it was looking, so I'm going to attach that onto my card front, just popping it up where it's going to overlap those higher edges of the layers underneath, and then I'm going to cover up where I stamped the sentiment with my green bauble here, and just adding some glue to make sure it's nice and firmly attached, particularly when it's going to go over top of some glitter cardstock as well. And you wouldn't know that I made a boo-boo under then if you hadn't seen the video. I then cut a little white fishtail banner, stamped and embossed my sentiment on there. So may your Christmas sparkle is the sentiment. I'm then pulling in some enameled dots that are this lime green glitter enamel dot, and they're from a Pink and Main card kit, and they match the green in my bauble and the cardstock perfectly. So I thought that was very handy that they match so nicely. For card number 7, it's going to be a little more subtle than some of the bright cards. I'm using a pale blue snowflake background from the paper pack, and that's 1/8 of an inch smaller all the way around than the card base. I'm then bringing in this iridescent paper from a Kaisercraft paper pack, and I'm just going to show you here what the paper pack looks like. So it has 4 different coloured foil papers in there. This is going to be the background for my main image and sentiment, and it's got that pretty iridescent sheen that you can see picking up in the light there. I then taking some peel off stickers, but these ones aren't Love from Lizzie ones. They're another brand, and unfortunately I don't have the packaging to be able to tell you what brand they are, but I'm going to add those all the way around the inside of or outside of that white matte layer there, bringing in some more sparkle to the card. Now that's done, I've cut this gorgeous sentiment out of the tealy blue paper from the same Kaisercraft paper pad, and it says, "'Tis the season to sparkle." And I'm attaching that on very carefully, just taking my time because it is very delicate, because that is paper and not cardstock that I've used for the sentiment. So once that's attached, I'm bringing in my bauble that is all blues, and I'm using a little bit of the peel off that was left over from when I trimmed it down, and that's going to be the string or ribbon holding my ornament in place, and it looks like it's attached to my sentiment there. I'm bringing in my blocks because I need something to hold down the bow part as well as the bauble itself. Now, I couldn't decide whether I wanted more peel-offs on there to add the sparkle, and I do come in and I have added more of the silver peel-offs to that outside layer of my cardstock. And here's one last look at all 7 cards I made today using the mini bauble stamp set, and it was so much fun. I hope if you were lucky enough to get one of the stamp sets from this Christmas release, that you have as much fun as I have had with it as well. Until next time, it's really nice to have your company, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye bye for now.